everyone, welcome to today's video. As you can see, I have a review for you, and before I get into that review, I just want to say one quick thing. As more people are clearly starting to go back to the cinema, which is great. Cinemas have been open where I am since like November, December, so we're doing fine, but I know others are only just starting to go back to the cinema. So just a reminder, you're out in public among strangers. You're not at home. The rules of your home do not apply at the cinema. For example, don't be on your phone. Don't be having loud conversations with the people around you. Focus on the film. If you have to say something to the person that you're with, say it very quietly. Do not scream, do not yell, do not feel like you have to do a commentary on the entire film. If you are at a cinema where they provide food and drink, especially those of the alcoholic variety, please, by all means, indulge, but do not get drunk to the point where you are now disturbing everybody else, and while you and your friend might be having a grand old time, you are ruining the experience for everybody else. Just a couple things that everybody should keep in mind. Keep your phone switched off or on silent. If you must take a phone call, leave the cinema to go do so. Little things. They're not really hard. If you're going to eat, please try to keep the sound to a minimum. If you have to open the packaging before the film starts. Little things that if we just thought about it and just were a little bit more courteous, someone like myself who absolutely loves films and has enjoyed going to the cinema since I was like 4 or 5 years old, may not find themselves debating never going to the cinema again, because I've been to the cinema 5 times so far this year, and of those 5, 4 of those experiences were ruined because of selfish people seated next to me, and I've kind of had enough. I want everybody to have a good time, but just be considerate that maybe you're disturbing the people around you. Just enjoy the film, and if you're not enjoying it, either sit and suffer in silence like the rest of us, or leave. But if somebody is having a good time, don't ruin it for everyone, okay? It's not that hard. But enough of that, let's get into my review of Cruella. Cruella is a 2021 American crime comedy drama film directed by Craig Gillespie with a screenplay by Dana Fox and Tony McNamara, from a story by Aileen Brosh McKenna, Kelly Marcel, and Steve Zissis. It's a prequel to 101 Dalmatians and is based on the character Cruella de Vil from Disney's 1961 animated 101 Dalmatians, which was based on the 1956 novel The 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. It's the third live-action film in the 101 Dalmatians franchise and is set in 1970s London following Estella, an aspiring fashion designer who explores the path that will lead her to become a notorious criminal known as Cruella de Vil. I really wasn't sure what to think going into this film. I was not remotely impressed by the trailer due to it feeling like a repeat of Birds of Prey with nothing new to add, but watching this, I was super surprised with what it decided to give us. I would not call this a villain story. I wouldn't even call it a prequel, to be honest. While it is a prequel and does line up a bit more with the original animated film and book, I would feel more comfortable describing this film as a reimagining of the Cruella character and the story of 101 Dalmatians. It gives us a character we all know, but a story and atmosphere we don't. This film doesn't try to sell you a tale of a misunderstood villain, though that does slip in a bit. Instead, it's a story about being born bad and embracing it. The film is set during the punk rock movement, and that movement is in the very bones of this film. Punk rock hit its heights in the mid-70s. It was all about non-conformity, being an individual, fighting the status quo, standing up and taking action against authoritarianism, fascism, consumerism, and corporate greed, and doing so through art and music and fashion and even protest, and this film embodies all of that. Cruella herself embodies all of that. In this film, she becomes the ultimate punk rock symbol. The fashion is where this film really sells us this, and does so fantastically thanks to the costume designs by Jenny Beavan and Tom Davies. Their fashion for Cruella is definitely about taking the punk rock philosophy and translating it into something high fashion. During that era, women's fashion in the punk rock scene took on a more masculine appearance, and through that, gender lines in fashion began to blur. Just look at David Bowie during that time, a beacon in music and fashion who notoriously blurred the gender lines. You can certainly tell the character Artie, played by John McCrea, was really inspired by David Bowie, almost even looking like him. Too bad they didn't hire him for the biopic. In this film, we see the iconic fashion legacy of the House of Baroness dominating the fashion world and even the corporate world. Baroness von Hellman, played by the incomparable Emma Thompson, is really the voice of fashion. She alone dictates what is in and what's not. She steals the ideas of others and claims them as her own. She's all about power and status. She embodies everything punk rock was against. Even her fashion sense echoes her personality and ideals. Tight, sharp lines, bodices that are constrictive that really speak to who she is. Her looks are hyper feminine but have edges to them which totally enhance and further project that she is a powerful, hard-edged woman not to be messed with. While Cruella may be the central character, Emma Thompson and her portrayal of the Baroness steal the show from start to finish. She gives us a villain that could go toe-to-toe with Glenn Close's Cruella and might even win. Emma Thompson delivers every single time she is on screen, from a glance, a stance, a twitch, or a flick of the wrist. Regardless of what her character is saying or doing, she draws you in and holds your attention, making her the knockout performance of this film and one fitting of her character. For a character who must always be front and center and superior to others, it's impossible to take your eyes off her whenever she's around. Stellar performance without a doubt. Cruella, formerly known as Estella, played by Emma Stone, gives us a new type of Cruella. As I said, Cruella embodies the punk rock movement, and her character and especially her fashion is completely indicative of that. It's also the complete opposite of the Baroness. It's edgy, it brings something masculine to women's fashion, it blurs gender lines and is all independent. It's a self-funded project and not about profit but about making a statement. Emma Stone, while unable to stand up to the acting prowess of Thompson, does hold her own. She gives us an unhinged yet diabolical genius who is dealing with an identity crisis, searching for her place in the world when she was born into a world she does not fit into, so she creates a new one. While this version of Cruella has more softness and humanity than previous incarnations, the fact it still shows her as having a natural dark and cold side does make her more palatable. Her family drama certainly gives some reasonable context to her character and personality, but I never felt this almost Jekyll and Hyde approach to her character was all that successful. I didn't feel that it worked for the character or the story, it just felt manic, especially seeing as how Stone chose to give the two versions of her character different intensity in the accents. Add that to the hair and fashion changes, it was as if I was watching a scene from Split, and that aspect I wasn't loving. I believe we could have seen her go through her search for herself and embracing all facets of herself without it coming off as someone with a personality disorder without being someone with a personality disorder. The fact this version of Cruella is actually quite the animal lover definitely doesn't make it fit in terms of calling this a prequel, especially since animal death and torture is very much what the character is known for, and chalking it up to just a rumor while fits this version doesn't fit the other versions and does make calling this a prequel troublesome. While it's fun seeing Stone rock out the iconic two-tone hair of Cruella, I don't like how it was incorporated into the story. To say the character was naturally born with this hair but then never for a moment explain how that's even possible or why they chose to make that a thing just makes it appear incredibly absurd. I understand trying to tell us that Cruella is a natural-born nonconformist, born to stand out, but that doesn't mean she has to be born with the most perfectly symmetrical two-tone hair in existence. I wish that she was someone who had hair like everyone else, but found this element boring, and in her youth was always changing it up, and then during the film when she chooses to become Cruella, she finds something that inspires her new look that helps bring Cruella to life. Instead, we're saying that in becoming Cruella, she just stopped wearing a wig. I completely support the idea of embracing who you are, but embracing who you are doesn't always mean looking as you were born. People alter their appearances all the time, just look at me. And for some, it's not about becoming someone else, but about letting the outside echo who you are on the inside. And so I do kind of wish they'd gone with that approach, even if it felt a bit cliche or derivative. I believe in this story they could have given it more impact than this way of doing things. The soundtrack to this film was off the charts, playing so many 70s classics that I myself have grown up loving and so couldn't stop myself from lip syncing along. The song choices really do lift up the story and amplify that punk tone, and I loved it. It was so refreshing to hear more Tina Turner, or in this case more accurately Ike and Tina Turner. It's been a while since I heard a Tina song featured in a film and it was very welcome. The musical score by Nicholas Britell is just the cherry on top of this devilishly good film. I need to get my hands on the music for this film right now because it was so damn good. The cinematography by Nicholas Karakatsanis was mwah! It was dark, it was grunge, but it knew how to make color pop when needed. It could make a scene as cold and lifeless as it needed, or sharp and vibrant, and I was living for it. The cinematography, teamed with the costume design, is just constant candy for my eyeballs, and now my eyes have diabetes, and I'm okay with that. The story was enjoyable, a little off in some areas, but overall a very fun watch that I would happily watch again. While I'm confused by the use of CGI for many scenes, including making the animals CGI for most, if not all of their scenes, was an odd choice for sure, and while incredible quality did throw me off from time to time and was not sure how to feel about them, since I know trained animals could have done just as good a job. That aside, the CGI really is brilliant, even if a tad unnecessary in some places. The fashion, while stunning, was overly fond of an asymmetrical silhouette, and I was a little underwhelmed seeing that same silhouette appear throughout the film. I would have liked just a bit more variety. Top performance across the board, but none more top than Thompson. This was probably the best live action film we have seen from Disney in ages, and honestly didn't even feel like a Disney film at all, but I loved it, and if this is the direction Disney is taking their live actions, then I'm pretty excited for the future. To be honest, I know that there were people who complained about giving Cruella an origin story, or when they do origin stories of villains, making them good people who turned bad. I personally don't have any problems with that. I always compare it to the Joker quote of "it just takes one bad day," and that's kind of how I see a lot of Disney villains. Now, guaranteed, I love when a character is just born bad and just is naturally that way and totally runs with it and rocks it and does it so great. But I'm also really much a fan of characters who were not that way, but something in their life, hardships, cruelty, just so much negativity, turned them into the villains we know and love. And just because I feel like that I really connect with that, and I think that maybe that goes for a lot of people, that when they connect with villains, either that potential of a story, or because villains are just so much fun and they get to break away from norms, they get to break the rules and do the things that the rest of us don't. So I understand why a lot of us gravitate towards them. And so I wasn't against the idea of a Cruella origin story when they said it was happening, although I wouldn't really call this that. But then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my god, this looks exactly like Birds of Prey, only black and white. But then it turns out it's not really like that at all. The character of Cruella is very much unhinged, which you could say the same of Harley Quinn. But her unhinged personality doesn't quite make sense as opposed to Harley's, which absolutely makes sense. But yes, while this is a Cruella origin story, I still don't necessarily see it as one. Like I said, I see it as more of a reimagining, and if I look at it from that perspective, it's a lot more fun and easier to just roll with, but not everybody's going to see it that way, and some people are just going to not like it or feel this is completely unnecessary, and that is completely okay. But I personally really enjoyed this film, so yeah, if you're having second thoughts, I would definitely consider checking this one out and giving it a go. That doesn't mean that you're going to like it, but I definitely think that there's a good chance that maybe you'll enjoy it more than you thought you did. And if that's not the case, I'm sorry. But that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay happy, stay safe, stay healthy, watch lots of film and television, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. So until then, bye!